Every poker player talks about tilt. You've probably talked about it yourself. And your friends have too. We say things like, I tilted off my stack. He was on tilt. I need to control my emotions better. Tilt has become one of those words that gets thrown around so often that we start thinking we understand it. But here's the truth. Tilt is not about losing control. It's about your brain doing exactly what it is wired to do, just in the wrong situation. In this first episode of the Tilt Files, we're going to explore what tilt really is from a psychological perspective. We'll look at why telling yourself to just stay calm almost never works, and what's actually happening inside your brain and body when you tilt. Once you understand that, you can start retraining your emotional response. So let's begin. When I was working on my doctoral research in psychology, I studied the habits, thoughts, and emotional patterns of high-performing poker players. And one thing became very clear. Even the best players in the world, those with huge bankrolls, perfect focus, and incredible discipline, still experienced powerful emotions at the table. They felt frustration, disappointment, anger, even embarrassment at least some of the time. What separated them from everyone else wasn't that they avoided those emotions, but that they handled them differently. Tilt is not simply getting angry. Tilt is your brain's threat system turning on. It's the same system that kept your ancestors alive when they faced danger. When you experience a big loss, a bad beat, or a perceived injustice at the table, your brain doesn't see that as a minor inconvenience. It interprets it as a threat. And when the brain detects a threat, it launches a full stress response. Adrenaline and cortisol surge through your system. Your breathing speeds up. Your heart rate rises. Your muscles tense. And your attention narrows to whatever caused the threat. That made perfect sense for survival when the danger was a predator chasing you. But at a poker table, that same response works against you. Your body thinks you're fighting for survival, not simply playing cards. And here is where things start to go wrong. Once your threat system flips on, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and rational thought, the prefrontal cortex, starts to go partly offline. You're no longer thinking clearly. You are reacting. That's when players start making impulsive calls, chasing losses, or convincing themselves they are due for a win. It isn't because they lack discipline. It isn't because they're weak-minded. It's because their decision-making brain has literally been hijacked by their emotional brain. And here is the kicker. The harder you try to force yourself to stay calm, the more tension you create. You start fighting your own mind instead of working with it. That tension keeps your stress chemistry high and your focus low. Think about this. You take a brutal bad beat deep in a tournament. Your first instinct is to tell yourself, do not tilt. Keep it together. But your breathing speeds up. Your chest feels tight. Your mind keeps replaying the hand over and over. Now, instead of making fresh decisions, you're reacting to pain. You've gone from playing poker to defending your ego. That's what tilt really is. A threat response misfiring in a safe environment. Your brain believes you are in danger even though you aren't. And that false alarm costs you clarity, discipline, and profit. So how do elite players handle this differently? They don't suppress their emotions, they regulate them. In psychology, we call this skill emotional regulation. It's the skill of recognizing what you feel, naming it, and redirecting it before it takes over. And yes, it is a skill, not a personality trait. The best players have trained their minds to respond to tilt triggers differently. They notice the tension in their body and use physical resets. Deep breathing, a posture shift, sometimes even standing up or stepping away for a moment. They use short mental resets like, variance is neutral, or I made the right decision. The cards just didn't cooperate. These cues tell the brain, I'm safe. Once your brain receives that signal of safety, your stress chemistry begins to settle. Your breathing slows down, your heart rate normalizes, your prefrontal cortex comes back online, and suddenly you can think clearly again. That is the real secret to emotional control. It isn't about never feeling frustrated. It's about being able to notice your frustration without letting it run the show. Over this mini-series, I'm going to help you retrain your emotional response, just like the top performers I studied. We'll break down the emotional skills that elite players use every day. We'll talk about what they do differently when they feel anger, fear, or disappointment. We'll go step by step through how they recover from bad sessions, rebuild confidence, and return to playing their best. Because tilt isn't inevitable. It's a learned pattern. And like any pattern, it can be changed. You can train your brain to react differently. You can learn to calm your threat system, clear your mind, make rational decisions even under pressure. And that's what this series is all about. If you want to start right now, I've created a free resource that will help you. It's called the Tilt Recovery Toolkit. Inside, you will find the exact system I teach players to reset after emotional spikes and get back to their A game fast. You can download it at drtriciacardner.com/tilt-recovery. That is drtriciacardner.com/tilt-recovery. In the next episode, we are going to look at why elite players actually feel just as much emotion as you do, and why the difference is all in how they interpret those feelings. Until then, remember this: you can't eliminate emotion. You can only train your mind to work with it instead of against it. Thanks for listening to Poker Psychology Unlocked. If this episode helped you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one in the Tilt Files series. And remember, your best poker starts with your best mindset.